So we've already done my top 5 best movies of 2022, and now it's time for the one you've all been waiting for, the top 5 worst movies of 2022. As always, I haven't seen all the bad movies that came out this year, as I tend to avoid them. So movies that might have made the cut, such as the 355, Firestarter, Babylon, Strange Worlds, or Uncharted, will not end up on this list. So with that said, let's get this top 5 list started. Number 5. Smile. This is a horror movie that has been very well received by many, and for 95% of the movie, even I really liked it. It is the first horror movie in a long time that burned images into my brain when I turned off the lights at night, which doesn't happen to me anymore. This movie was also a drama of a person being dismantled and broken down by this dark force. So like I said, I really enjoyed 95% of the movie, to the point that it was going to be number 5 on my best of list. But then we got to the last 5%, and that was enough to completely tank the movie for me. Something you guys don't know about me is that my number 1 most hated trope in all of cinema is not the love triangle, is not the poorly written convenience, and is not the MacGuffin. It's the twist horror movie ending. I have hated this trope ever since I was a kid, and I still hate it to this day. And this bullshit ending completely undermined the message of trauma that the movie was attempting to tackle, and just made the whole film feel pointless and like a waste of time in the end. And that's always how I felt about this trope. It's the worst trope in all of Hollywood, and it is that destructive that it can take a movie that I really liked and have it end up on my worst of list. Well directed, well acted, great tension, good scares, great sound design, shitty ending, and that is enough to put it on this list. Number 4. Morbius. So the reason this didn't make it higher on the list is because I never had any expectations for it in the first place, and I wasn't disappointed by it when I saw it. I knew it was gonna be shit, and it was shit, so how could I be disappointed or mad? If anything, I was rather confused at how incompetently made it was, which is kind of how I felt about Gotham Knights when I saw the trailer, and most people gave me a hard time about it, but I ended up being right. And another reason I couldn't be too mad at it is because I expected it to suck ever since Sony announced it. Just like I know that both Madam Web and Kraven the Hunter will be terrible movies, Sony seem to be committing so much time, money, and energy into forming a universe of villains, even though they have no Spider-Man that is willing to participate in it. That should give them a clue that this universe is failing and not building to anything, yet they continue to invest in it for some reason. And even Sony know it, because Morbius was meant to have ties to Spider-Man in this movie, and before they released it, they took all of those scenes out. It's like even they knew that this movie was going to suck before they dumped it in theaters. And then they had the absolute idiocy to re-release the movie after the Morbius meme started trending, and not surprisingly, people still didn't go to see it. Morbius continues to prove that Sony are the worst when it comes to producing comic book to movie adaptations. The only good thing they have going for them is the animated Spider-Verse films, and that's only because they leave those creatives alone because they think the real money is in live action. So we must provide as much of our guidance as we can in order to be successful. And well, this is what their guidance results in. I have made a dedicated review of Morbius, and if you want to know my more detailed thoughts on it, then watch that review. But yeah, Morbius, what a morbid pile of shit. Number 3. Jurassic World Dominion. Jurassic World Dominion was a complete disappointment in every conceivable way. The development for both Owen and Claire's relationship was such a botched up mess throughout this trilogy that even the characters don't know what to call it.
Aren't you and Owen still like a weird thing?
The original characters returned to the franchise, and despite the actors doing a good job, they had no chemistry with the new characters. Their comebacks felt so contrived and poorly conceived, and they were just thrown into the movie to drag idiots like me into the theatre. The villain was terrible, the plot was terrible, and it completely rushed past the great cliffhanger that Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom set up. And it even rushed past the climax and gave us recycled fight scenes that were given in the previous 2 movies. I felt so ripped off that I paid to see this in theatres. And not to mention that my stupid theatre had the volume on too loud, which is something that they have been doing a lot lately. No wonder cinemas are failing, and they bloody deserve it with quality control like that. I've made a versus video of Jurassic World Dominion, so if you want to know more of my detailed thoughts on how the movie compares to the other 2 in the trilogy, go ahead and give that a watch. But yeah, what a disappointment. Number 2. Lightyear. This movie had 2 sins. 1, they didn't cast Tim Allen, and 2, everything else. Lightyear was incredibly bland and dull. This movie was supposed to be a celebration of my generation of kids movies from the 90s, but instead it just ended up being a modern 2022 Pixar movie. This movie was terrible, and I never felt like I was watching Buzz Lightyear. Also, as far as representation goes, Disney have been criticized for excluding LGBTQ representation in their animated movies over the last few years, and honestly, of all the movies they made, this is the movie where they would have been justified in excluding the representation because it would have fit the whole pitch for this movie. That being that this was the movie that Andy saw as a kid in the 90s that made him a fan of Buzz Lightyear and made him want to buy the toy. So this movie should have been a send-off to kids' action movies in the 90s. And in 90s kids programming, you wouldn't get a gay couple, let alone a gay couple making out. You wouldn't get modern 2022 actors such as Taika Waititi and Chris Evans voicing the characters, and you wouldn't tell a modern, half-assed interstellar plotline for kids. If this movie was true to the kinds of kids movies we would have seen in the 90s, then it would have made a big action movie with big 90s stars like Tim Allen doing the voice of Buzz. And it very much would play out like the Buzz Lightyear video game from Toy Story 2 or the popular animated TV show on Disney+. These are the concepts and executions that we should have gotten with this movie. But no, instead we get Interstellar Light. A lot of people have speculated that Disney had a random spaceman script and they just dusted it off, changed the main character's name to Buzz Lightyear, and threw in some of his catchphrases to finalize the deceit. And I have to agree. Honestly, a much better Lightyear movie is the opening of Toy Story 2. Go and watch that and you will get a much better and much more creative solo Lightyear movie with a ballsy ending. Also, I didn't expect this going in, but this movie falls into the woke category for me, because despite this being the movie that made Andy a Buzz Lightyear fan, I'm surprised that he didn't end up being a Commander Hawthorne fan, because there is nothing that Buzz does in this movie that would make anyone a fan of him. He doesn't get to do anything in this movie. Everything he does results in failure and the side characters, including Taika Waititi, having to come in and rescue him. I wouldn't mind that sometimes, but it literally happens every time. The movie constantly tries to undermine him to the point that it even says he was the evil Emperor Zurg all along. That felt awfully similar to when The Last Jedi was trying to frame Luke Skywalker as the villain and an old hermit. The movie doesn't even put Buzz in the spotlight by the end. Instead, the movie constantly dedicates itself to Commander Hawthorne. I mean, why? We came to see Buzz Lightyear. What the hell is this nonsense? They should have pulled a J.J. Abrams Star Trek where Kirk was applauded, celebrated, and then was rewarded with his own crew and ship in the end. We should have gotten some kind of honor like that from Star Command for Buzz. But no, his superior gets honored and Buzz is just there. But see, it's called Lightyear, so it's all about him. Isn't Buzz great? Andy loved Buzz after this. That honestly just felt like a last-minute tagline that they tacked onto the movie to try and trick us into buying tickets. But they didn't fool anyone. This movie is disgusting. I thought The Last Jedi was behind us, but a lot of the stink from that movie found its way here. And they tried to repeat what that movie did, but in a much more sly and devious way. Representation is not a bad thing, but when Hollywood makes such bad examples, I can see why people would not be happy to hear about representation in future movies, because these very same people that criticize it have never had a problem with it before. The only reason they have a problem with it now is because Hollywood are not doing it well, and in turn are actually doing the very people they are trying to represent a disservice and a lot of damage, which maybe was Hollywood's plan all along. I don't know. I could go on about this piece of shit of a movie, but I'll end it with this. The movie spectacularly bombed both in theaters and on streaming. And Disney, how many more brands are they going to mess up? First Star Wars and then Disney and now Pixar. They really need to reevaluate their strategy because they are running out of franchises to screw up. Well, there is one more franchise they could screw up, and it's time to talk about that right now. Number 1. Thor: Love and Thunder. Yeah, the MCU have been going down a rut this year, haven't they? This is the first year where none of the MCU movies made $1 billion at the box office. On the one hand, I am actually very happy that this movie got made, because for years, I've always felt that Marvel have been going over the top with comedy, and there were a lot of people that just accused me of not having a sense of humor and trying to dissect what it means for me as a person to not laugh at MCU jokes. Well, to those people, this is what you get.
A hand grenade?
No, it's a portable speaker.
And of course, let's not forget about this hilarious joke.
Is this ice cream shop here infinity cones?
For those that have defended Marvel's over-reliance on cringy and out-of-place humor, Marvel thought they could get away with anything and their fans would just defend it. And although you still have those hardcore defenders out there, I have not seen any defense for the comedy in this movie. This is the movie that went too far and even made those who are the most tolerant of the MCU's humor just throw in the towel. Even Chris Hemsworth said that the tone for the next Thor would need to be drastically different, which is a passive way of saying, no more Thor from Taika Waititi. This movie's #1 priority was not story, characters, villains, it was comedy. So much so that big scenes featuring Gore and other characters such as the giant dwarf were cut from the movie entirely. But it's okay, because the jokes stayed intact.
I no longer go by the name Astrid. I'm now known as Axel.
He's a singer from a popular band I heard on Earth.
GNR.
Astrid.
Axel.
Astrid.
I said Axel.
Astrid.
Axel!
And that's all that matters. Honestly, this movie just inhabits all of the qualities that I hate about the MCU, but ramped up to 1,000. The story is paper-thin light, the characters and whatever they're feeling is constantly made fun of, Jane Foster's cancer has jokes made about it, the cartoony dialogue they get her to make is so cringeworthy, the CGI is terrible in every single shot, the green screen looks worse than ever, and the same volume technology that the Batman expertly and seamlessly used for its landscapes and backgrounds looked so horrendous in Thor: Love and Thunder that it actually made Marvel's green screens look good in comparison. Lady Thor I couldn't take seriously, Valkyrie was a good character in Ragnarok, but this movie actually made me hate her, as well as Tessa Thompson's pathetic one-note acting. Christian Bale was putting his all into this performance, but his character got all of his scenes cut, and Korg...
No, that's not it. No, that's not it. No, that's not it. You have a go.
I thought he was just okay in Ragnarok, but I despised him in Love and Thunder. And typical Marvel, they couldn't kill any of their characters off. They had to bring them back. 1 in the movie and 3 in post-credit scenes. Speaking of which, the mid-credit cliffhanger is exactly the same as the cliffhanger in M. Night Shyamalan's The Last Airbender.
Do you understand me, Achilles? Do you understand me, my son?
Yes, Father.
Do you accept this unspeakably important task I'm putting in your hands?
I do, Father.
Let that sink in. Taika Waititi also pissed me and many others off with the foolish and downright unprofessional way that he was conducting himself. You can watch him in interviews, it's like he genuinely was just turned off and didn't care. It was a complete shit show.
Does that look real?
In that particular shot, no, actually.
As a director, my respect was growing towards him, especially with the great job he did with Jojo Rabbit. But after being so annoying in Free Guy, and the abysmal work he did with Thor: Love and Thunder, and the downright stupid stuff he was saying at press junkets, all of that goodwill went down the drain. When asked if he would release a director's cut and restore the countless scenes that were cut from the movie, he threw some shade at director's cuts and said that if he did end up making a director's cut, he would just do it to put in some more jokes. Yep, more jokes instead of the big scenes that were completely cut out of the movie. And I feel like his attitude towards this movie right from the beginning was also just completely off. Matt Reeves said that when he did research for Batman, he did a deep dive into the comics, the Telltale games, the animated series, he told Robert Pattinson to watch Mask of the Phantasm, he read the book Manhunter and All the President's Men, and he even watched a ton of movies relating to detective noir and societal deconstructions. He watched Scorsese movies, he used lessons from Alfred Hitchcock, he even had to look into what shell companies were and how they worked. Just so much research. Taika Waititi's research consisted of this. Here's the thing about me, guys. I did not really do my research. I read 1 issue of Thor as my research. Not even a graphic novel. One of the thin ones. And by the end of it, I was like, well, we're not doing that. Let's not really look at those anymore. Cool art. I love the art, but I can't stand the way everyone talks. When Martin Scorsese said that MCU movies are not cinema, I disagreed with him, but Thor: Love and Thunder made me think, maybe he was right. Oh, he was so right. This movie is an insult to filmmaking, it's an insult to comic book movies, it's an insult to the new volume technology, and it's even an insult to its audience as it treats them like they are a bunch of kids, and stupid kids at that. After seeing it, even Chris Hemsworth said that this is a movie that a 7-year-old would make, even though we have much better comic book movies for 7-year-olds. This movie is complete garbage. I was going to make a versus video of it with Thor Ragnarok, and I even wrote most of the script, but then my heart just wasn't in it, and I didn't think the movie was worth putting in all that effort. But Disney do. They are submitting Thor: Love and Thunder at the Oscars for Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, and, I am not kidding here, Best VFX. That is a bigger joke than the movie itself. But do you know what? It does deserve an award. A Razzie Award. Thor was such a great character in both Infinity War and Endgame. Those movies really took him and properly fleshed him out as a character, and Thor: Love and Thunder took that great development and threw it out the window. He was annoying, he was made the butt of a joke throughout the entire film, none of the lessons he had learned in the previous movies seemed to mature or shape his personality, and he had a love triangle with his hammer and axe.
Listen, we good? Yeah?
Man, Scorsese really was onto something. This movie is Taika Waititi's equivalent to a bad Adam Sandler movie. He didn't care when he made it, he just wanted to go on a vacation with his friends and decided to shoot a movie on the side. And Natalie Portman is a very good actress, but in the hands of Taika Waititi, I can't stress enough how she was completely painful and cringeworthy to watch. And to have to listen to her speak Taika dialogue throughout this movie.
Well then, if it's color we need, let's bring the rainbow.
Even Lady Sif, a very respected warrior and a lot of people's favourite character in the Thor movies, Taika also made her into a joke.
And then I can claim my place in Valhalla.
Oh, I hate to break it to you, but for a warrior to get into Valhalla, you have to die in the battle. You survived.
Oh shit.
What on earth is he playing at? This does not represent her character at all. And Thor suddenly having the ability to give his powers to a bunch of kids was just stupid. If he was able to do this, then why didn't he give all the Asgardians this power when Thanos infiltrated their ship in Infinity War? And why didn't he give this power to all the Wakandans? It's just, even for Marvel's, ugh. Morbius I can at least laugh at and hate watch. I can't even laugh at Thor Love and Thunder. I just feel pain. That's how bad it was. And this movie honestly broke me. It just made me think, this is the studio that has Daredevil and The Punisher. My worst nightmare has become a reality. All those reasons and more is why Thor Love and Thunder earns the #1 spot on my top 5 worst movies list of 2022. And with that, those are my 2 top 5 lists for 2022. Comment below with your worst movies list, and be sure to check out my top 5 best list if you haven't already. And really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for watching and for all the support, guys. It is an absolute pleasure making videos for all of you, and I am already hard at work making more for another year of content. And also, I am finally going to be purchasing a new computer to edit my videos with. My current computer for the last year and a half has really been slowing down to a crawl, and I have always included donation links in the description of my videos, and right now, any donations that you guys make for the rest of the month will all go to speccing up the new computer and making it faster. And I will be editing my videos on it for the next 10 years, which means a much faster upload schedule. As usual, links to donate are below. Thanks again so much for watching, guys. It really does mean a lot that you have been sticking with me for all these years, and I will catch all of you very soon. Take care.